Hey everyone, welcome to Movie Marathons HQ, where we do movie marathons connected to new releases and where we enjoy and review some of our favorite movies. This video is part of the Toy Story 5 movie marathon, where we are watching one movie every week as we prepare for the release of Toy Story 5 in June 2026. Today we are discussing Toy Story 3. Directed by Lee Unkrich and released in 2010, this is the third movie in the series. I recall a lot of people asking why would they be making a Toy Story 3. It felt like Toy Story was iconic, and Toy Story 2, released just a few years later, felt like a great follow-up. But then it had been many years. So then producing another Toy Story movie to be released in 2010 just seemed like way too long of a time, and what would be the point of this? So there's a lot of hesitation. However, upon release, this had a very positive response, and a lot of people love this movie and feel like it's solidified Toy Story as one of the greatest trilogies ever made. So a lot of people love this. Unfortunately, I don't love this one. Overall, I do like this movie, but I don't love it anywhere near the way that I love Toy Story and Toy Story 2. I think there are some things to like here, and we'll get into it in the positives and negatives, but overall, I think this movie has emotion, but it doesn't have heart. I think Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 2 had a lot of emotion and had a lot of heart, and I think that one's missing here. For positives, I'll mention the animation, the humor, the themes, and the emotion, though it's lacking heart. And for negatives, I think it's missing an anchor song. Like Toy Story 1 had You've Got a Friend in Me, and then Toy Story 2 had When Somebody Loves You. It might not be called exactly that, but that song. And then this one is missing an anchor song. Also, I feel that this movie has just is lacking the heart that the other Toy Story movies had. Spoiler alert for Toy Story 3. First is the animation. Of course, any Toy Story movie is going to be beautiful, and this one is very, very well animated. I think there's a lot of textures that are explored here. In the daycare, there's like a jelly octopus thing, and it looks like if you were to touch the picture in the movie, it would feel like those squishy things do feel. Lotso Bear looks like a bear that's really old. Somehow they made it look like it's an old textured toy, and so you've got to call it a positive for the top-notch animation here. They also do some really, really great things with light. There's this scene at the end where Andy is giving his toys to Bonnie, and they're underneath a tree in the afternoon sunlight, and you can see the light dappling down through the shade of all the leaves and the branches, and as the leaves and branches move through the tree, how it disrupts the sunbeams. You see that in this on these animated characters, and it just shines through really well. There's also some flashbacks which look great, and it looks clearly distinctive as a flashback, not just adding a sepia color tone to it. So the animation here is still phenomenal. Next is the humor. This is still a very funny movie, and there's some fun and entertaining parts. I don't think it's as funny, at least I didn't wasn't as entertained in this one as I was in the first two. And upon rewatch this time, I still wasn't as entertained. So I don't think the humor works quite as well, but there's some funny parts. Buzz Lightyear going into demo mode is pretty funny, and then being in Spanish mode, they do some good things there. And then just all of the interactions between the characters are still pretty funny. I think the themes of this movie are good. We get just the concept of your loved ones moving on and change, and how the toys are, they've outgrown Andy, or rather, Andy has outgrown them, but it's kind of both. And it feels like Andy's rejecting them when really he's just moving on to other things, and they need to accept that, and change is hard. And then also it's pretty entertaining. Just the idea of what it is like for toys in a daycare versus toys in a home under the ownership of one child or a small family of children. I do think that is fun to explore, and they milk that concept pretty well, where they've got all kinds of things that happen here. But the themes are really strong, especially at the end when we get into Andy giving away the toys, and he really didn't want to give away Woody, but he's sort of is put in a position where he feels like he has to, and it almost feels like you see Andy grow up in that moment, And it's crazy because we've grown up with Andy since the first Toy Story movie, which was so many years before this one. So there's some strong themes here. I don't think the themes have as much heart, which we'll get into later. Um, but still some interesting themes that they explore here. And what do I mean by emotions but no heart? I think there's a heart in the first Toy Story and in the second one where I feel invested in the characters and I want what the characters want. There's a real buy-in that I think happens in those two movies, and I don't think that happens here. I don't know exactly what it is. And everybody talks about the final scene where the toys have been sort of accidentally sent to the dump and then they get through the grinder, but then they get dumped in this room where all of the trash bits are going down into a giant furnace and they're trying to escape, and then they sort of without words realize that hope is lost, and the toys all look at each other and extend their hands, and they all hold hands as they embrace their coming doom. And that is a very emotional scene. It's animated well. The music is pretty strong there. So I think there's emotion in that scene, but I don't think there's heart in that scene. I don't think. Of course, they get saved at the end by the little aliens, which is pretty fun when they use the claw to rescue all the other toys. Um, but I just think there's not heart in that scene, and I don't think there's heart throughout the rest of this movie. I know that the toys are trying to get back to Andy, and they care about Andy, and we care about Andy, but I think it just feels like we know that Andy's going to move on because he's too old for the toys, and the sister's not interested in the toys. And it does have a nice ending where they get donated to Bonnie, who's like a family friend. I do like that element of it, but I just think overall this movie has emotions that are done fairly well, but it is missing that heart. So for negatives, I think it's like a micro positive that the music in this movie is still good. It is composed, the score is done by Randy Newman, who is great. But this movie is missing an anchor song. The first two had such strong anchor songs in the runtime, like not just in the final credits, but as part of the movie, they had these great songs. And this one's just missing that. I know that a song in a movie shouldn't make a movie better or worse, but I just felt that was really missing. It's almost like a staple of the DNA of these movies, with the first two at least, and it feels like a departure here. So I would call that a negative. Now, how might Toy Story 3 connect to Toy Story 5? Well, Woody, Buzz, Ham, and Rex are all returning, and they'll be voiced by the same voice actors as they were in this movie. Slinky Dog will come back, but he'll be voiced by Blake Clark, not Jim Varney. Mr. Potato Head and Mrs. Potato Head will return in Toy Story 5, but they'll be voiced by new actors as well. Bo Peep will be in Toy Story 5. And then Jessie and Bullseye will also return. And then also critically in this movie is where we get introduced to Bonnie. Bonnie will be the main human child character in Toy Story 5 that the toys are dealing with, but she'll be voiced in this movie. She was voiced by Emily Hahn, but in Toy Story 5 she'll be voiced by Scarlett Spears, so a new voice actor there. I just expect Toy Story 5 to be a continued adventure of these toys, especially as Bonnie is beginning to outgrow them. So that's my review of Toy Story 3. What do you think of this movie, and how do you think it might connect to Toy Story 5? Make sure to let me know in the comments below. Follow Movie Marathons HQ on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and also on Letterboxd, where you can see all of the movie marathons we've got going on at the moment. The next movie in this marathon is Toy Story 4. See you at the movies.